Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
And now I would like to introduce our speaker, Robert. All right.
Robert Alcoholic. Hi. I've been to meetings before where they kind of get up and do testimonials about someone else in the meeting, or someone's having an anniversary and they speak about them. And oftentimes, and welcome to the newcomers, by the way, this is not only a divinely inspired program that works and has a great history, as evidenced by all the folks who are counting multiple years and decades here tonight, but it's also just a great meeting hall that's been going on for a while. I've come into this meeting drunk off my ass, high on dope meds, looking to play grab ass and get laid. And this is better. It's pretty much better. But what I want to do is I would like to just take a second and thank you, Rustum, for asking me to come up here and participate in my own recovery. And I don't know, I'm kind of feeling in a celebratory mood about Alcoholics Anonymous, about recovery, about pain being the touchstone of spiritual growth, and about just looking back along the legacy. Even if you're new, you know, for me, I avoided AA for long enough that I had a relationship with it. I had a relationship of an avoidance pattern. I had a relationship where I looked at the 12 steps and I looked at the 12 traditions and I said, these people really need to take a knee because I've spent a lot of time at the Bodhi tree and I can make some incredible improvements to what they think they know about the awakening that's already happened to me. I just keep smoking coke. So Rustum and I have known each other for many, many, many years, and I'm sure as some of you, there's people here, I have sponsees here, I have dear old friends here, I have generations of fathers and sons and families that are sober together. I have friends here, I've had friends here that help family members of mine in ways outside of the program, but still have to do with spiritual principles. So I feel pretty comfortable, even though I don't really know where this is going. I did ask that God direct my thoughts, and strangely, the first thought He gave me was that I balked when Rustum said that the ideas expressed through me are my own, because if God's speaking through me, I think that you might be mistaken there, but that remains to be seen. I was wearing a pleather members-only jacket, in other words, a fake members-only jacket. I was really dressed up. Rustum told me that we were going to get a rat burger and he was going to take me down into Alphabet City so I could watch a professional drug addict score dope, which we did, and we promptly got mugged by some cast members of West Side Story, sharks, I believe. Pushed into a little doorway, and I was scared, and he was mad. I would come to understand that it's more appropriate to be angry than fearful when you're at the level of dope sick that he was that very day. I just remember thinking, it's so crazy, I love him even more. By the way, he looks pretty handsome today, but back then he looked like Marlon Brando's boxing coach. He was gorgeous. And anyway, these gentlemen obviously had an agenda of their own to take our money, our clothing, and our shoes and send us on our way because we shouldn't have been in their neighborhood. They had these knives with rags wrapped around them, and they were business. They weren't threatening us. They were wondering when and if and where they were going to stab us and how much more they could take from us before they did that. And I remember must being like, dude, you got everything we got already. Just let us go. Give me one of those bags back or I'm going to get sick. And I was just like, wow, this is so hardcore. As you know, the Lower East Side of Manhattan has been gentrified and is quite the place to look for a co-op nowadays. But I look back on that stuff, and now I see someone, and I see a lot of members of Alcoholics Anonymous, the ones that I like to see anyway. I like the people who almost always have a commitment somewhere. I like the people with multiple decades of recovery sitting in the front row. I like people who raise their hand when they have so much experience, strength, and hope to share, but they don't seem to be taking themselves too seriously, and they just kind of do it because that's what they're supposed to do. I seek out those people, and I hope as I move along this road of happy destiny to become one more and more every day. Because that's the thing, you know. I used to look at the kind of flaming gates of admittance to AA as there were all these things and they were written down and you had to do them in a specific order, and I didn't agree with half of them and the rest of them I wasn't really willing to do, and it all just seemed like a heck of a lot of work. And that's just the door you pass through, and on the other side of that door I found there's action and there's more action, and I don't want to say it gets easier and easier. It gets easier and easier to accept how difficult it is to be alive. You know? And I've come to believe, in my little bit on the other side of being in active alcoholism, that is a good thing. I used to think it was a cruel joke that was played on me that everyone says, you know, put the plug in the jug, brother, and take my hand, and, you know, you're going to love what happens. And I didn't. I had to relive and drudge up and keep peeling this onion of alternately joy and misery and all this other stuff. But to me, that's become part of the joy. So to give you just a little bit of background, I'm from New York, born in '65. I grew up in a very permissive household. Lots of alcohol and lots of drugs. And I remember swinging in, just visualize 70s rainbow hammock when I was like 5 or so, and I always saw that what my dad and his friends were doing, you know, as the joint was being passed around, as they kind of put out their hand, and it was this whole thing, and it was, my instincts told me this was what community was about. So I was in the hammock, and I reached out my hand, and circa 1970 or 71, like, that was like really entertaining to the adults. Lots of hipsters, by the way. I would also like to take a moment and pause and hearken back to the generation of people who are old enough to be my parents, and I want to say what a brilliant... They talk about the World War II generation. I want to talk about the generation that were of age in the 60s and 70s, and probably almost always sober by the 80s, or dead, and just what a beautiful, brilliant... incubators of the counterculture revolution and all this stuff, you know, and maybe it died, and I don't know what happened. Somebody stabbed somebody at a Rolling Stones concert. I don't know. There's a million theories about what happened. All I know is I had the pleasure of being raised by these people. I also had the pleasure and the great misfortune and the great occasional evil of being introduced to what this counterculture was doing. They were drinking, you know, flasks of Lancer's wine in clay bottles, and they were doing all sorts of hallucinogens. They were doing heavy drugs, and they were smoking pot all the time. So I came into it that way. But my mom drank quite a bit, and but before I ever got a hold of one of my mom's drinks, I remember that it was a True Blue cigarette in an ashtray. She left the room, and it was like a J.D. Salinger novel. It was just this beautiful cloud of spirits and smoke, and she left the room for a second. I had this instinct. I must have been 4 or 5 years old, and I just jumped off the couch and ran over and got it, and I knew how she did it. And I took one, and it was like I'd been poisoned and strangled at the same time, and that was my entree into, you know, a myriad of things that all feed back into alcoholism of just, I just want to do what they're doing because they seem so happy. So anyway, growing up, my parents are artists and underground filmmakers and actors and weirdos. My mom used to pick me up at school wearing a cape and just whatever, it's just my life. My dad used to wear a Superman shirt, and we would go out to a fancy restaurant, and he would just bang out some blow on the table and go, "Bring me another iced tea, will you? 2 straws." And I remember feeling alternately absolutely in love with this image of my father and alternately repelled and completely adoring my mother, depending on how they were getting along. And at the same time being kind of embarrassed. You're never too young to know that something socially awkward is occurring and you're being subjected to it. I could just say that the rest of my alcoholism until 8 years ago was just more of that. But I also had a dream or two and an inspiration or whatever, and I also wasn't afraid of hard work. So, clearly alcoholic couples, particularly fiery ones and brilliant ones, or any from that generation, they broke up in fiery ways, and I witnessed a lot of drama and a lot of that stuff, and it was painful. And for a while, it seemed like drinking almost kept the family together. So it's no wonder that I had a little bit of a dependency on the ongoing nature of alcoholism for the family. It was something we could all agree on. And yet, it's kind of dark and terrible. So I picked up the mantle, and, when folks break up, I don't know if I was one of those kids who thought it was my fault, but I did say, this is terrible. Look at what's happened to these people. I've almost lost my respect for my parents. Look at them. They're drunks. They're dope fiends. And then I proceeded to outdo them on their worst day for several decades to come, which is a remarkable achievement in and of itself. And along the way, I also, I always wanted to, I was in theater arts, and I always wanted to do this stuff, and I kind of dug myself out of a desperate situation by starting to work here and there. I'd like to briefly pay homage to all of the relationships that we have subjected men and women to throughout the courses of our alcoholism. Just a moment of silence for that. And it's easy, even my sobriety date is July 5th, 2004, and it's easy looking back now. There's something that for me, I just have to be very careful about, and it is talked about loosely in the literature of, there can be this tendency to say, we don't regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. But sometimes I look at the past in a way where I feel so good about myself now, I almost have this lack of reverence or understanding for what I put other people through. And the easiest way to not have to fully live the amends to those I've harmed is to cop a new resentment against them. And that's something that I've been taking a look at. And I see this year as a great opportunity to reinvestigate my investment in AA and how much can I give back to this program that's so freely given so much to me. I have a bunch of sponsees here. I have a sponsor. Anyone who's seen me around the clubhouse knows that I just can't go too long without a commitment, or I start getting real froggy. Somebody asked me if I'd co-secretary RODEO. They said the numbers are dwindling. I go, hey, don't put that on me. I said, that's not what this is about. But what it really was once I looked past my knee-jerk reaction was as I start judging the gift or the opportunity by specifying what it is about it that I can dig out of it that doesn't feel good. As you know, I'm back in that saddle. So I feel really happy that it's 2013 and I'm here. I have 8 years and change, and it's real. I adore people who take fake cakes. I love people who are high and in the meetings. I love them because I believe they have a desire to stop. They just haven't yet, but they're still at the meeting. They have met the minimum requirement to be at any meeting they want to go to. And there's something really fun being loaded in a meeting. I remember drooling into my diesel sneakers at Sundowners once, and I just closed my eyes on a nod and said, "Oh, this is just the best meeting ever." Is anybody? And I was just like, "Oh yeah, I can tell these people how fucking grateful I am." Anyway, blah blah blah, and I came to LA. Nightmare. I'm the type of person who shame is a big part of drinking for me. I can't wait to be reminded of the horrible things I did and said the night before, because that puts me closer to my next drink, because I just got to take the edge off. It's not beyond me to run screaming naked and jump on somebody's roof looking for imaginary specters. I think someone should do a study of drug-induced psychosis. And it's always the same thing, 50 people have told me the FBI's in the trees. I go, I know, aren't they? They must have like a whole branch of just tree-dwelling FBI agents. Just the trees. It's all such a nightmare. Anyway, July 4th, 2004, I was doing what I do best, catching felony cases in the summertime. So if you want to catch a extra special case, you have to have a large amount of narcotics. You have to be visibly under the influence of alcohol at 50 meters. So I woke up, drove, picked up a bunch of Mickey's Big Mouths, easy access, drove to the second best restaurant in Los Angeles besides Daily Grill, Burger King. I was gonna, load up, get some carbs, get some protein down, have a couple dozen Mickey's Big Mouths, and go sing at a friend's wedding, because that's how insane things had become. And I do want to say, a little bit about the steps and how they work for me. Is that it's for me. This is just my opinion, Rustum, or is it? No, this is just my opinion. I knew I was an alcoholic, and I knew things were a mess. And that didn't matter to me, because I'd given up on the hope of ever really, I tried so many times, and I'd had so much great help around me, and I just couldn't seem to put any time together or really, get any traction with this whole recovery thing. It takes a little time. So I was operating, having kind of done a first step and absolutely not open to the possibility of the hope of step two. And on this one morning, it just kind of hit me. I wasn't one of those people who finally dug in and said, all right, this time I'm really ready to take a knee and listen and all, I did all that stuff anyway, and I, mopped a bunch of floors and cleaned up chairs and got commitments and did the steps and really bought into this thing. But it wasn't because I suddenly decided to become, hell of a guy. I feel, in my instance, that I was struck sober. I was delivered from my alcoholism, and all that was asked was that I continue along this path of doing the steps and coming to understand the traditions a little bit, and picking up a sponsee here and there along the way, and seeking guidance from my sponsor on a pretty routine basis, And that's what happened, I remember my sponsor, Jerry, asked when we were doing a third step, because I'd done it so many times before, and I'm the lord of the frothy emotional appeal. So I thought that this moment with this sponsor, who I was really dedicating myself to, he was going to weep, we were going to look in each other's eyes, and I went to take his hands. He was like, I'm all right. I was like, oh. He's like, God's here, you're here, I'm here. We don't gotta beef it up at all. I was like, okay. That's the kind of counseling I required. All of the emotion and all of the brother hugging and all that in the world never got me another day clean. For some people that really works, and sometimes I can, in my personal relationships, I can resent it. I just want to digress for a second to say that I was on the phone with my missus doing couples therapy, and about from 3 to 4 today, and I just sat there and forced myself to let her take center stage. She's going through a lot. We just had a kid. She's trying to do this balance. The challenge is, and I'm just sitting there thinking all these thoughts about, me, where's mine? And I just kept a button in it. It was great. Part 2 of the therapy session, she proceeded to reveal to me and our shrink how few of the character defects I asked to be lifted have actually left. I just laid there and took it. And this is after a broken ankle and scar tissue popped today out of left field. I'm 47. I'm just trying to go to the gym. I'm not even standing on it, and it's popping out. My great cohort, Jimmy R., and myself, he goes to do a set. He goes, dude, I'm spent. And he puts the thing up. He goes, I'm done. And then I was like, And we just walked out of the gym together. And I love that. It's like seeing like these old action stars, like the Golden Globes or something. They just kind of hobble out. They're still having fun. We all are. We're all the stars of our own alcoholic action trilogies. Anyway, that was it. Listening to the real life that has been granted me from this program, paying attention and staying super grateful. Because as soon as the step study with the sponsees is over, and it's not Thursday, it's Friday, or as soon as the weekend's coming and things slow down a little bit, and there's something I decided not to do for myself to keep myself mentally fit or emotionally well or physically there or whatever. It's like alcoholism for me, and I don't want to say still because it's only been a minute. It's been like 8.5 years. It just takes hold so quickly. And while, not to get too techno about the whole thing, but while many of those neural pathways have either been cleaned out by a higher power that I choose not to explain, but I understand roughly how it works and continue to seek to do that, is, I can return to a former state so quickly. And I was just thinking, in closing, before I take a question or two, I was imagining there was a huge clock in back of me. Maybe an atomic clock. Let me dream. I banged up my ankle doing this job, which is kind of a silly, fun job that I do, playing a guy who can do all kinds of amazing stuff. I started thinking I can do this stuff. I'm like, check it. We're going to get this before lunch. No rehearsal. Wire jump. Boom. They're like, Robert, and at this point, I had so much leverage, and I was so sweet about the whole thing. They just believed me. 8 weeks later, we're up and running again. And just a couple days ago, I went back and started trying to do some of this stuff again, because I guess you're supposed to 3 or 4 or 5 months later, and I'm just not all there yet. But nothing happens when it happens, a couple days ago, I did some whatever gung-ho shots, whatever. The robots are coming, whatever it is, And I'm like, you get it? They're like, oh, and I go, all right, let's go a little faster. You get it? And I go, okay, and we're done. It was easy. I go home, I go, I feel great. My head is on straight. My body's working. My soul is good. I'm in the sunlight of the Spirit. Next day, I wake up, I go, I feel fine. And then all of a sudden, I'm doing nothing. It's always like you're tying your shoe or whatever. So anyway, it's the same thing for me as a relapse. And I don't want to say I hate relapses, but I hate the way alcoholism can be so cunning, baffling, and powerful that you can have the life you've always deserved, and you can be on a path that's righteous, and you kind of drop your guard for a second because because I'm consumed with self, or because I've picked up a resentment that I'm not really working on and I'm not sharing, and it can happen like that. I've seen it. So it stands to reason that it could happen to me. And I just want to say again, how grateful I am that by the grace of God I've been able to maintain this recovery. Now, I'm doing the footwork. I stay stuck in with the literature, with the commitment here and there, with sponsor and sponsees, with, I forget the book every time I finish reading it. It's a miracle. So I just start over again. But things tend to, once in a while things happen when they happen, A car crash happens when it happens. But relapses, for me, have always happened so way before the point that I picked up a drink. So I just want to encourage anyone who's returning or who's new to, please give yourselves a break. This is such a tough deal, and it's, I think it's a very heroic thing to do. And, there's so many men and women who can really help you through those times when you feel like, I got to sit on my hands, but I'm not going to sit on my hands. And it's amazing what a phone call can do. It's amazing what just copping to our frailty with the disease. It's easy once you've been around for a while and you kind of look good to not want to admit, oh, I'm still an alcoholic, and guess what I'm thinking, and guess what I'm planning? Just tell somebody. I found, for me, that you only have to do that a couple times, and pretty soon that dark, evil, wonderful alcoholism thing says, ugh, they're on to me. This is boring. I'll find someone over here. It's pretty easy to stay sober. It's not comfortable at all, but it's so worth it. And thanks for letting me come up here and share. Hello, sir.
Can you talk about obviously you created a lot of refuge out there. Can you talk about your amends process?
Yes.
Is there anything that really stands out with your parents or anything like that?
Clearly, you were following me over the holidays. Put it on speaker. I'll tell them too. Amends. Clearly, Robert, you've created a hell of a lot of wreckage out there, more than most of us. You're a pig and nobody trusts you. And it's been years. What did you really do? Amends. It's funny and it's not funny. It's just what I've come to know. Hi, Gary. We have a step study. We, before the holidays, were wrapping up the 2 parts of Step 8 and went back into Step 9. I've been through those steps, and I have to say, this is just my experience, is that the quality of doing the steps improves every time I do them. There are schools of belief that say you do them once and you're done, and I know people who have done the steps so thoroughly and at a time in their lives where they also had the clarity to remember everything. Amazing. Different for everybody. For me, is my first round of amends was enough to get me to remembering and more deeply investing myself in my second round of amends. And I'll give you a for instance. I'll give you one of my cop-out amends. I'm with my dad. We're waiting for an elevator. I press the button, and I decide I will be done with my amends by the time the elevator gets there. Because, like I said, I want to relieve myself of the responsibility of doing something thoroughly, so I start making justifications of why I can just kind of phone something in. It's very LA. It's very me. I'm working on it a lot. But I have to say that, some of the more painful ones were going back to me, the painful amends are the ones that are in the realm of, it's going to be really embarrassing to remind myself of the situation I was in with this individual. The family stuff, because my family, all of us, strangely, are sober all these years later. So there's kind of an ease there. There's still probably a little more work to be done, and I'm still digging on that. But it's always tough to confront something that still feels really shameful and to drudge it back up. And what I would say is that, Jerry always says to me, except when to do so would injure them and others. We are one of the others, and it really is important, or has been important for me, and I say this to my fellows too, and that of, certain amends are really evocative, and nothing really happens when it happens. I can clear up a toxic amends and then fall into a K-hole and start mouthing off to people who don't deserve it 5 days later. I have to be really spiritually fit. I found that's the step that I actually have to have the cleanest head and heart to do to get into that principle of brotherly love, which can still be a little sketchy sometimes. Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh. How do you help a mountain climber who's hammered? More oxygen, baby. You're going to be all right. No. I understand the quality of the question, and for me, truck driver, TV personality, Krispy Kreme specialist, it's all the same. The first thing that I had to break down were those labels of who we are outside the rooms. I take the disease and I take what service I can be very, very seriously, and the other stuff I just see as inhibitors to that. I can be in the workplace and I see someone, but then I think about it, I go, how many people in the workplace saw me like drawing on the walls with crayons when I'm supposed to be on set in 15 seconds, or locked down in the bathroom, while imaginary bumblebees chase me around the thing. I go, I haven't come across anyone as nuts as I was. And the other thing, too, is, again, to me, it very, very much falls into that category of, am I spiritually fit to deal with this right now? And I still find that being around people who are intoxicated, or being around people who are kind of loud or messed up on pills or dope or whatever, it's like I don't know why I'm so very innocent about this. I go, oh, that doesn't feel good. I don't want to, So all I know is the best thing that I've heard is they'll get you drunk before you get them sober. And I can't continue to be of service to anyone if I start going and like reaching out of my comfort zone to try to help someone. I mean, the thing is, mostly when people want help, they usually want help because they bottomed out and the hubcaps are rolling, down the road, or because they have a little something similar to what I had. So, it's funny, my missus went to get a little help of her own and came back with the whole stay in your own lane thing, which I love. And I thought, my reaction to this other this other fantastic institution is I'm going to say they're absolutely right, and how can I incorporate that into my life too? End of sentence. Period. Please, one more. Hello, darling. Please.
Hey, you said that this time around you felt you were struck sober around step 2, if I understood correctly. And I'm wondering, I know you came through for several years through AA and rehab, and I'm wondering if there were any things you did at all different that helped this being struck sober occur that might be helpful to someone else coming around.
Right. Well, there's one thought, and I hope certain of you can relate to this. It's amazing to me how many other people have said they could relate to this experience. I really never thought I was in any serious trouble. I just thought I was going to do a stretch at county. I thought, I'm catching the chain, I'll be a Corcoran for 18 months. But I'm fine. I never thought, and by the way, I think certain of that mindset is a survival tool for the alcoholic, but finally that survival tool failed me, and right before step 2 happened for me, I had the thought, boy, I might die before I'm done doing all of this drinking and drugging I intend to do over this lovely celebration of our nation's birth. So, my experience is that AA works. Rehabs can work. Jail can work. Joining a soccer league can work. But actually, if you believe you're an alcoholic, that's great, but you might die one. If you believe you're an alcoholic who is in the process of coming to believe that there is something that can save you from death by alcoholism, that's powerful. And the rest of them are really tough and really annoying, but necessary. But that was my struggle all those years. It's a very yin. It's a very kind of Weisenheimer. I I'm actually thinking of somebody who's like this right now. Probably reminds me of myself. Which is like, I'll absorb all of that first step stuff. I'll just go, yeah, I know. Oh, I'm so sick. But it's getting into the next phases of that, so you can actually get into action and do something about it. That's just my idea.
Ronnie, thank you for sharing. What have you done to cultivate your spiritual path?
What have I done to cultivate my spiritual life, the spiritual aspect of myself? It's funny, and obviously it's one of the great hat tricks of why AA has so dwarfed and overshadowed so many other organizations with I think a really positive intent that have tried to reach the same group of afflicted persons, is that essentially it's an intuitive process. It will not be written down and handed to you, I was listening to somebody today who said that somebody whispered their mantra to them and they felt too embarrassed to say they didn't really understand it. So they don't really know what it is. I believe that the survival of an alcoholic depends largely on good luck, God's grace, and that little stream of unspoilt intuition that tells you when to get out or when to get in, or I know I'm not done yet, but I really better go to a spin dry for 28 days because I think I'm going to, things are about to go south. And my spiritual life has been a number of intuitive drives towards things. I happen to be a bit of an Eastern guy, although in the midst of any car crash, it tends to be more of a Christian matrix that I will go screaming to. So unless the car is doing a 920, off the 210 into the embankment, I prefer the Eastern method. There's a Kung Fu Academy. It used to be on Lincoln, and I used to drive by there and go, oh, I will find my way if I go there. Where's the liquor store? And then I went in there one time when I was in the throes of my disease, and I met my Sifu, who is very much a spiritual teacher, even though we study martial arts. And one day he called me into his office. He said, Robert, I think we warmed up. Can you come meet me in the office? So I was like, yeah, great. Let's stop by the bathroom real quick. He goes, why don't you not stop by the bathroom real quick? I was like, oh. We go in there, he goes, I don't understand why you're already sweating profusely when you get on my mat to begin the warm-up. Whatever you're doing, if you do it on the mat again, you can't come back to the academy. Martial arts has been helpful, in particular Wing Chun Kung Fu, developed by a woman in the 18th century. Lots of meditation, lots of Silim Tao. It's called the way of the small thought, which is so hard sometimes to just think about something small and not have your mind wander. Prayer and meditation is very much a part of that. And I find nowadays that I'm still seeking. I give myself permission to go, I haven't really locked into anything. I'm a bit of a spiritual hunter-gatherer. I'm hoping by the time, God willing, I'll take a 10-year cake and it'll be time to probably start getting serious around here. I'll let you know when things get serious. Please. Absolutely. Can I talk about my prayer and meditation? I can talk about it. It's really kind of far out and weird. This is being recorded, isn't it? I can talk about it. I could talk about it. But again, what I would like to say is, for me, the alcoholism addiction was a very ritual-based thing. And there are things I do on a daily basis that are not things that are necessarily out of the book or prescribed, but they do give me pause. They are rituals. I've heard about a lot of other things, and strangely, AA has kind of spoilt me sometimes, and I should be open to more, but I hear about like Dharma punks, and I go, I want to go there, and maybe I should go there. And then I find myself twisting in my own little special way now. Meditation is something that, for me, is best done multiple times during the day. I have so much discipline that is imposed upon me by my profession and my marital status and being a new dad that I find that I do a little bit better to find many places during the day where I can pause when not agitated, so that I'm not doing it just to get out of trouble, but I'm doing it to try to get out ahead of something. And I find that, as I said, in the hunter-gatherer realm, I feel these years later like I'm still kind of gathering materials for my great opus of commitment to a spiritual life. So, I'm in process. I'm not really there yet. Ma'am, against the bricks. That's you.
So, can you talk a little bit about, as a recovering alcoholic, how you balance the demands of work and home and family? Can you talk a little bit about that? What's working?
Yeah.
What's not working? Or what's working?
Right. Well, anyone who's ever been a kid or has a kid or plans to have a kid, there's this period of time where it's by nature imbalanced, say like a breastfeeding mother. And I do recall that the first 3 years or so of being sober, the first 1,000 days, I was really carried by a bunch of people who realized that I was recovering from a serious illness, and I was still very much closed for repairs, and I kind of worked a little here and there, and I was really lucky. But this is what I was talking about today, and I'm really actually glad you asked that. How do you find the balance between work and recovery and relationships and all that stuff? And it gets really confusing. I found that there are other inventories that kind of fall in the category of a 10th step, where the contents of my healing alcoholic mind need to be thrown out somewhere where I can look at them and categorize them and prioritize them. Because for me, and I don't know if anyone can relate to this, everything used to be pressing and important, even if I wasn't conscious of what it was. And I think part of the maturation process of A, not being a kid anymore, and B, wanting to actually emotionally enjoy the experience of a sober life means that I have to take responsibility and say, okay, this is not important at all, and it's pressing. So I need to ignore that for a minute, because that's going to drive me mad. And this is important and not pressing, which means I'm going to be lazy about it until it festers like a boil, or I'm going to address it sooner than later, And I think in the literature it just says, we cease fighting everything and everybody. We don't struggle anymore. I go, what are you talking about? We don't struggle anymore. Like, I'm struggling today. And I do feel that that's a choice, It's if I can have the attitude during the course of the day, and today was kind of one of those days. I could walk, and then suddenly I couldn't. And I asked if somebody wouldn't mind grabbing me some crutches. It's so easy to get caught up in how hard life is and how difficult it is to navigate on the best of days, that I've found that the more energy I can concentrate on just quieting my alcoholism, and the less I try to control events around me, which is so odd when any of us who are in positions where we have to manage other people who have, a bunch of guys on a construction site who we kind of have to make sure they get the job done, or a worker amongst workers. To my astonishment, I have found that when I stop struggling and just do the next right thing, it tends to work out pretty well. Who really needs to ask something? Oh, there he is.
Like you said something about you finally got what your friends were waiting on.
Right.
How did you finally get
Well, all I want to know is was your last bottom as bad as the worst one? And we're the same guy. I've always sat there. Up to the last second, and beyond the last second, I'm still questioning, is this the right time for me? Is this, you know what I mean? Dude, you get it, right? And that's the thing. To me, that, and by the way, I still have this. I just don't have it with drinking and using anymore. I implore you to move past applying that hilarious principle to drinking and using and start seeing how you can apply it to other areas. And it just becomes, to me, this meditation on, oh my God, that's a mindset that I have, which I apply to something. And I have such resistance. The more times I thought I meant it and I didn't, the more my hope breaks down. They say there's this great experiment. Are we running out? 2 minutes? Perfect. And thank you for that question. Thank you very, very much. There's an experiment where you take a lab rat and you put him in a clear box, and you fill up the box with water, and the rat swims to the top of the box until there's just a little bubble of air. Last bubble runs out. They've got monitors on the rat, and right before it checks out, they drain the water. The rat goes, oh, wow, that was gnarly. They do it again. He swims up to the top, maybe the bubble's over here. He goes, all right, I kind of know how to do this. He starts relaxing in it. He does it another 10 or 15 times. Usually somewhere between 20 and 25 times. The rat is in the box. They fill it with water. He doesn't move. This is a hopeless venture. So to answer your question, which I think was more of a question to yourself, if I heard it correctly, is how do you move forward when you've gotten to that state of learned hopelessness? And it's by, for me, it was by digging in, giving myself one more shot, giving myself a break, you know. You have 36 hours off opiates. That's an achievement just built on that. And let these folks take care of you until you can take the reins again. Thanks for letting me share.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.